This morning on Today's Health, can you be healthy at any size? Conventional wisdom dictates if you're thin, you're healthy. If you're overweight, you're not. But a host of doctors and researchers say that is simply not true. And Dr. Carrie Peterson is a contributor to Women's Health magazine. Dr. Peterson, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Tamara.
So this is interesting because that is conventional wisdom. We associate people who are thin with being healthy.
Yeah, actually what doctors have traditionally used is what's called the body mass index, or the BMI, and that's calculated by just using your height and your weight. And based on that, it's estimated that about 33% of Americans are overweight and 34% are obese. So it's now deemed that this might not be the best gauge to determine your health.
So that is the big change in this argument here.
Yeah, that's correct.
And what is the main argument for this? I mean, I'm from the South, and you hear women say, listen, I'm healthy, you know, because you got curves and different things, especially when you talk about women in weight.
Well, the pro-fat camp has two levels of evidence that they think support their argument. One is that there may actually be a healthy fat that's beneficial for you, and the other is that it may actually be better to be a little overweight than to yo-yo diet and fluctuate up and down.
What's interesting, because how can, you know, being overweight, for example, if, having a little weight when you want to get pregnant, that is a benefit, but in other aspects of your life, how can that extra weight actually make you healthy?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really depends on where you carry your weight. If you're a pear-shaped woman and you tend to carry it in your thigh or your butt, that actually may be healthy fat.
Okay.
And the reason is that this type of fat is more stable. It actually prevents the release of compounds into the bloodstream that can raise cholesterol. And in addition, it actually releases two hormones that can be beneficial. One's called adenopectin, which lowers your sugars, and one is called leptin, which suppresses your appetite. And the other thing I had mentioned is that while being a little overweight may not be ideal, yo-yo dieting really can be a lot worse over the long term. When your weight's going up and down, you actually can slow your metabolism and gain weight in the long term. And it's also associated with high blood pressure, gallstones, and heart disease.
But what about the aspect of being overweight causing chronic illnesses, diabetes, blood pressure issues? What about that?
Yeah, this is the other side of the coin. First off, abdominal fat can be very dangerous. And as we know, being overweight can be linked to many, many terrible diseases, many cancers like breast cancer, heart disease, high cholesterol, arthritis, diabetes. I mean, it goes on and on.
Well, it's interesting, too. I mean, when I looked at this information, and we just showed this on the screen, the average woman is 20 pounds overweight.
That's correct.
But it sounds like, again, this is where you carry the weight.
Yeah, actually.
And basically your lifestyle as well, because if you're a size 12 and you kind of are active, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's right, Tamron. Actually, where you carry your weight may be a better predictor of your health. We talked about the pear shape having some benefits, but if you're apple-shaped and you carry your weight in your midsection, that abdominal fat that you can pinch and the fat that's deep inside around your organs, this is called visceral fat, that is dangerous fat. That can lead to high blood pressure and gallstones. And really, overall, the best thing that you can do for your health is to be fit. And
when we are obsessed with, for example, going on the scale, I mean, if you work out a little bit, you get on the scale, and that can certainly affect how you see yourself and whether you should make adjustments. But that should not be the case. I mean, again, back to this information.
It really shouldn't. I would say both sides definitely agree that fitness is key, because exercise will reduce your mortality by a whopping 50%. It's going to reduce that abdominal fat that we just talked about. So I would really rather see you be a plus-size gym goer than be a skinny couch potato.
So knowing this information about the BMI, what's the best barometer? What would you suggest for women who are watching now?
Well, there are a few gauges that I would go by. The first, and I think most important, is your waist to hip ratio. This is actually determined by, you measure the narrowest part of your waist by your belly, and then you divide it by the circumference of your hips, and you get a ratio, and that should be between 0.6 and 0.8. That's the goal. Another really important measure is your blood pressure. A lot of people know what that is. It tells you a good gauge of how hard your heart is pumping, and that should be about 120/80, and you should get that checked probably about every year. Cholesterol is another really important parameter. You want to check your good and your bad. You want to know your LDL, your triglycerides, and your HDL, not just the total. And you should get that checked about every 5 years. And then the last gauge that I would measure would be your blood sugar. Because if your blood sugar is high, that can be an indicator that you may be developing diabetes.
I think this is so interesting. I mean, there's a lot of information, but the basic point I think is very clear. I mean, being active is the major thing here.
That's right,
barometer. That's great. All right, thank you very much.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it. Dr. Carrie Peterson, thank you.